Hi everybody, thanks for coming out to the May event featuring Dave Dobbin from Mobilicity, and it's great to see a lot of people in the audience considering it's an election night. Polls close at 9:30, so don't worry about rushing out of here, still have a lot of time. Wanted to let you know this is our final event for the first half of the year, and we'll resume this fall. I'd like to thank the Mars team for all the help this year, and as always, so Janet, Alan, Peter, and Andrea, and Don, the AV team, and the film team, or video team. Also like to thank Janine for helping coordinate the event. It's great. We have a lot of sponsors that have been really supportive of helping the chapter grow to where we are today, and as we've mentioned before, we're in the top 3 globally in terms of MobileMonday chapters, so we're really excited about that, and it only will lead to bigger and better things in terms of events that we can hold. But the sponsors have a key place in making that happen, and we'd like to thank Miller Thompson, RIM, and they've been beaten up in the press a little bit lately, but they've been very supportive of the chapter, and Tyler spoke with us last month. Nokia and Chad and team, TELUS, Rogers, Wind, Tony Lacavera has been out to our events a few times speaking. Public Mobile, Alec Kristich, and if you recall, Alec and Tony spoke at the December event. BDC, Redknee, the CWTA MarketWire, and Dundane Multimedia. If you're following us, you can, on Twitter, you can use Momo Toronto, and if you're tweeting the event, pound Momo TO. It was a year ago that Mobilicity launched commercially in market in Toronto, and you know, over the last year there's been a lot of fierce competition in market. So we have Dave here to share with us their experiences over the last year, their plans moving forward, and just provide a general commentary on the state of the Canadian market. So a little bit about Dave. He's president and CEO of Mobilicity. His responsibilities for the growth and development of the company, for their overall success, and responsible for business strategy, sales, marketing, network operations, and customer care. Prior to that, he was the president of Toronto Hydro Telecom, and he led the sale of Toronto Hydro Telecom to Cogeco for $200 million back in 2008, which was at the time the largest Canadian transaction for a Canadian telecom asset. And they, I guess prior to being sold, implemented the largest wireless mesh network in North America. Prior to that, Dave was the COO of Telecom Ottawa, which was a subsidiary of Hydro Ottawa Holdings. And prior to that, he was a founder of one of the largest retail telecom distributors for TELUS products in Western Canada, well, actually across Canada, one of the largest ones. In 2006, he was one of the top 40 under 40 for Canada, and he's also the founder and former chair of the Toronto Board of Trade Information Communication Tech Committee. So warm round of applause for Dave Dobbin.
Thanks. Okay, you want to talk about competition? Be a keynote speaker at MobileMonday on election night. That's competition, with Jack Layton going to massage parlors. That's huge. That's competition. I can't match that. So, you know, with everything going on, I mean, you know, the election is fascinating. Everything about it is fascinating for me. You know, you think about it, negative attack ads, right? I love the negative attack ads. They're fantastic. I like the really mean ones. You've got false advertising in some cases. You know, false advertising is a big thing. People trying to convince the Canadian populace to go with one option rather than the other option. You know, lying, provisos. I mean, what about the promises? They all make promises, and there's always like some condition. They never come through on the promise. There's always some, you know, proviso or quid pro quo on the promise, and you know, it's really confusing. I'm not talking about the election. I'm talking about the Canadian wireless industry. Right? It's an interesting place these days. You know, with the election going on, let me just say on the election, you all voted, right? Yeah. Everybody's exercised their democratic duty, yes? Yes, promise. Yes, I voted in the advance polls, so I'm proud to have done that because I knew I was coming here. But, you know, with the election going on, I think it actually gives us a great time to reflect on what the government has actually done for us, the Canadian population. And, you know, I was asked out in the hallway, you know, who do I think is going to win and what difference does it make? And do I think there's going to be a big policy change depending on the winner? And, you know, when I think about it, you know, I remind you that it was in fact a Liberal government that commissioned the telecom policy review. And that telecom policy review is actually the process that started, was the groundwork of a lot of the change that we're seeing in the industry today. It was a Liberal government. And 3 successive industry ministers, Maxime Bernier, Jim Prentice, and now Tony Clement, through all of that change, the agenda of multiple governments of bringing more competition into the Canadian wireless industry has marched on. And, you know, I think we as the Canadian populace actually owe our government a great debt for introducing new competition and wanting to see the industry move forward with the advances that only competition can bring. So, you know, let's all thank the politicians, right? Thank you very much. I'm kidding. But, you know, actually, more importantly, and I do mean this one, the people that have really driven the change, you know, the people that have really made the big policy difference in the governments are the bureaucrats, are the people at Industry Canada and the CRTC that have shepherded all these changes through. They're the ones that have really, really made the change. And that's why you get that consistency of policy. I mean, look at our industry as little as 3 years ago. Look at our country as little as 3 years ago. And, you know, you've all heard it before, you know, highest wireless prices in the developed world. It's true. Lowest penetration in the developed world. That's true as well. Some of the worst customer service on the planet, right? You know, last year, J.D. Powers issued their customer satisfaction survey, and they found that less than 20% of Canadian consumers would recommend their wireless provider to their friends and family. Less than 20% would recommend their wireless provider to their friends and family. That's an abysmally low number. That's an abysmally low number, right? I mean, the wireless industry, how many people in the room work in the wireless industry? We're trusted less than used car salesmen. This is not a good state of affairs. It's not good. So kudos to the government and the bureaucrats that needed change, because, you know, that wanted change. And that competitive change that's being driven, it's already beginning to see payoffs for the Canadian consumer. But I'll talk more about that later. You know, so before I get into the meat of the stuff, you know, I'd like to just personally say thanks to Jim and Alex for, you know, doing Mobile Monday Toronto. What a great forum for sharing ideas. So thank you very much, guys. We really appreciate it. Right? It's really great. And thank you to all the sponsors that were up there before. So Mobilicity, wow. Competition has been intense. It has been an incredible, incredible year. When you look back, we launched Toronto last year on May 15th. When you look back at what's happened over the last year, I mean, who would have thought that we would see everything that we've seen change in the industry? I mean, you know, just if you look at our company last week, I mean, last week was a huge week for us. You know, we launched 2 new phones on Monday. We hired a chief customer officer, a gentleman named Anthony Booth. He's with us tonight to come in and help us with our sales and marketing. Our chief operating officer was named one of Canada's top 40 under 40. We launched Calgary, a new city. And then on Friday, we announced that we'd secured $215 million of new financing. All of that happened in the space of a week. Now, I got to tell you, as a guy working at Mobilicity, this is an incredible pace to work at when every week is going like this and there's change happening this fast. It really is an incredible, incredible thing. And when you look at, you know, again, just to take last week, when you bite that down and you look at the amount of work that goes into each one of those things, you know, take Calgary, for example. You know, I'm proud to say If any of you travel to Calgary, I would encourage you to buy one of our phones. Well, I'd encourage you to buy one of our phones if you leave here too. But if you go to Calgary, of all the networks that we've launched, in my estimation, it's the best network we've launched to date. The service is great, the coverage is fantastic, but we've been working out there for almost 2 years to build that network and to get it launched. It's just an immense amount of work by a huge number of people to make something like that happen. You know, our financing, we've been working on that financing for a number of months, and it really is a huge thing that we were able to secure that funding. You know, this is a capital-intensive business. It's a business that requires a lot of investment, and by us securing that financing, we've been able to secure our company's future well into the future. So we feel really good about that. There's two things about that financing that are important. You know, number one, you know, all of my new entrant competitors have been out shopping for new financing for their businesses. I'm sure a lot of you are aware of that. And you know, the Canadian financial community has seen everybody's business plan, they've seen everybody's numbers, they've met everybody's management team, they've heard everybody's pitch. And I'm really proud that they chose to back us, right? I think that's really a testament to what we've done, because our business is a different business than any of the others that have been created out there. And the second thing that's important about that financing is it allows us all sorts of flexibility going forward in relation to new strategic opportunities and pursuing those strategic opportunities. I'm sure a lot of you will have questions about that later. So it really was a big deal for us. So last week it was a big week, really big week. It was very busy. The last year, I mean, let's get in the Wayback Machine and take a look at the year, right? You know, go back to May 15th of 2010. We launched Toronto. Woohoo! Champagne. It was a good party. It was awesome. And then July came, June. Remember June, there was an investor conference with one of the big three wireless, and the president of one of the big three wireless said, "We won't do unlimited." Then in July, Rogers launches Chatter, right? Now, who in the room, honestly, let's have an honest moment of truth in the room, because I'll be honest, who in the room thought that Rogers would launch an unlimited discount brand as fast as they did? Who in the room thought that? Put up your hand. One. You, sir, are a visionary. I want your lottery ticket. But nobody thought it would happen. I can tell you, our management team is full of folks that used to work at Rogers. And we talked about this intensely. What are they going to do? Is it likely that they launch unlimited wires? No, there's no way they'll do it. It'll kill their EBITDA. It'll kill their margins. They'll destroy their own base. There's no way they're going to do it. Oh my goodness, they did it, right? It happened way faster than any of us thought. We studied competitive entrance scenarios around the world. We studied the United States. We studied the Baltics, the Nordics. We studied Southern Europe, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand. We studied all over. What happens when new competitive entry comes in? How do incumbents react? Well, the theory goes, the incumbents, with their high-value data services and large incumbent-style networks, they retain the high-value customers. New entrants come in, take the low-value customers, and equilibrium ensues. Not in Canada. Right? It was a T, wasn't it? Pity, only in Canada, right? But you know, Rogers comes with Chatter. So, and you know, you remember the billboards, right? I remember the billboards. Chatter Wireless, fewer dropped calls than new wireless companies. Well, we took a little bit of offense to that, right? Because our network was built by Ericsson, right? Same people that built Rogers' network. And quite frankly, it's awesome. If you haven't tried our network, you should. It's fantastic. So we took Rogers to the Competition Bureau, right? We submitted a complaint. More on that later. August comes, a CFO from a big three wireless company stands up and says, "We will not do unlimited. We won't do it." Park that thought. We launched Vancouver, Edmonton, and Ottawa in November. Hey, it was a great party, champagne, awesome. December, Shaw's gonna launch wireless. It's gonna be big, it's gonna be fast, it's gonna be the biggest network in Western Canada. It's gonna be awesome, remember that? Well, also in December, the Competition Bureau came back and said Rogers had to stop advertising Chatter. And you know, what's really great is the Competition Bureau of Canada levied the largest fine in the history of the Competition Bureau against Rogers for false and misleading advertising. The largest fine in the history of the Competition Bureau for false and misleading advertising. Bam. This is crazy stuff, isn't it? Right? Think about this. This is huge change. January came and things were changing. Nobody knew what Shaw was going to do. March, April, Shaw's not doing wireless anymore. They're stopping. And ClearNet came back, right? It's like a recurring dream. ClearNet's back. Now, I must tell you, if you're George Cope, this is great for your ego because Darren's doing your thing again, right? Which is great. So, really good. But what I'm trying to say is our industry has become massively unpredictable. What the Canadian wireless industry thought to be true 12 months ago is no longer true. The trends that we thought we could count on as a wireless industry are no longer trends. Consumer behavior has changed. The products that we sell have changed. The way that we sell has changed. Everything is different. And if you don't believe me, you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and your business will have been yanked out from under you. It is completely different. I made the comment earlier that we hired a gentleman named Anthony Booth as our Chief Customer Officer. Anthony's background, Anthony was the general manager of Mars Foods Canada. And before that, he was with Procter & Gamble. And people say to me, Dave, why did you hire a food guy to come and be your Chief Customer Officer and look after sales and marketing? It's actually a very simple answer. Is because when you look at our industry, like let's take a scan around, right? Bell TELUS, HSPA Plus enabled network. Rogers, HSPA Plus network. Wind, HSPA Plus enabled network. Mobilicity, HSPA Plus network. Videotron, HSPA Plus network. Shaw, maybe, who knows. But everybody's got a network that has roughly the same capabilities. Your customers' traffic can flow across the country in exactly the same way. The capabilities of the network are very, very similar. You're differentiating your product on the smallest of issues, right? This, to me, seems a little bit like cereal or toothpaste or some other consumer product, right? It seems like something that's ultra competitive with many, many players competing in exactly the same space. This was the logic stream. But our industry has changed. When you look at the advertising and marketing that's out there, and the way that people are talking about their product and the way that people are selling their product, it's all the same, right? We're shouting the same thing at the consumer, and I have news for you. The consumer has almost stopped listening, right? So we as an industry need to change because everything is different. So that's my one thought on the industry. My second thought on the industry is that technology advantage is very difficult to gain again. Technology advantage is very, very difficult in that the products and services are very similar to each other. So take our product, for example, at Mobilicity. I gave my phone to Cheryl. She didn't want it ringing on the stage. But you take our BlackBerry, for example. Our BlackBerry operates exactly the same as an incumbent BlackBerry, right? You can't tell the difference, right? The experience is exactly the same, no matter where you go. The only difference between our BlackBerry and the incumbent BlackBerry is we give you a significantly better deal on the service than they do. Therefore, the technology advantage is gone. We sell Android phones. We sell, the Nexus S is on our shelf. We've got some new ones coming that are pretty spanky. We launched the Playbook last week. By the way, it's a fantastic device. So, technology advantage is very, very difficult to exploit now. So you have to look for other ways to differentiate with your consumer, which is what we try to do at Mobilicity. So how do we do that? We've built a different kind of company. So why we are different than any of our competitors is, number one, we offer a deep value product, deep value that operates anywhere in our coverage areas and across the country. So a customer can buy our service, they get any feature in our unlimited plan in the coverage area, and they can take that phone from St. John's, Newfoundland to Nanaimo, British Columbia, and it works. It's great. So difference number one. Difference number two, we are the lowest cost operator in the market, period. right? We are the lowest cost operator in the market, even compared to our new entrant peers. We are the lowest cost operator. Let me give you an example. I saw an announcement, and don't quote me on this. I saw a newspaper article on wind, and the newspaper article was saying after they did some layoffs at their call center, they were at about 1,000 employees. At year end, we had 195 employees at Mobilicity. We operate in exactly the same cities that Wind does, selling virtually the same service that Wind does. We do it with 1/5 of the employee base, right? It's a different kind of company. How do we do that? We do that through a network of outsourced service arrangements with very, very large partners. So our philosophy is that we're the little guy, and we understand and we know that we're the little guy, so the way to be bigger is to find big friends. So like I mentioned, Ericsson, build, maintain, and operate our network. They're a great company. They're the largest provider of telecommunications products and services in the world. The guys that monitor our network in the Ericsson NOC are the same guys that monitor 3UK or Vodafone or anything like that. It's exactly the same network operations center. We don't have to build that infrastructure. We think that's a competitive advantage. Our billing and operations support system is from Amdocs, which is the same billing and support system that the big three have, each of them. Kind of makes Amdocs a monopoly, doesn't it? Don't you regulate monopolies? Sorry, that's a whole nother topic. But I used to work at Hydro. That was a Hydro joke. That was funny. But Amdocs, we get that billing system, that robust, feature-rich billing system. We outsourced all the maintenance and operations to them. Therefore, we don't have to have the 10,000-person IT department to do it. We outsource that functionality to them. We outsource our call center. We outsource all of those operations, which allows us to remain lean, and concentrate on what's important in our business, which is selling and marketing our service. The third thing that makes our company different is that we concentrate on what we want to be, and we stick to our knitting, and we do what we do. So, we have no aspirations of building service into Timmins or into North Bay or anything like that. We've built our networks in the major cities. Our service operates everywhere across the country, but we concentrate our unlimited coverage in the urban areas of the country. We're good at that, and that allows us to be the most capital efficient operator in the market today. All of these things come together and allow us to compete more effectively with our competitors. We've got a lower cost base, lower capital cost, all those sorts of things. So that's how we've built our model. It's a little bit of a different model from other operators. So, on that note, when you look at our business, we get asked a lot of questions on, policy issues and things like that. So I'll shift gears because I know there's people in the audience that want to hear our positions on the extra interesting issues around government policy. Is everybody in for that? Okay. How about I give you the 3 questions I get asked most often, and I'll answer them so you don't have to ask them in the question and answer. Right? What do you think? You can ask more interesting questions. So, first question I get asked all the time. Number 1, what's your position on the 700 megahertz auction? What should the rules be? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, very straightforward answer. I think that the 700 auction should be, there should be 3 things. Number 1, there should be a set aside for new entrants. Number 2, there should be a spectrum cap put in place. And number 3, there should be a limit on bidding on bidders that have any spectrum below 1,000 megahertz. Right? So let me explain each of them. Why a set aside? A set aside because if there's no set aside in the 700 megahertz auction, then competition has gone as far as it's going to go in Canada. Right? If you don't put a set aside in, our chairman said recently, and I really like the saying, is if you don't put in a set aside, the incumbents will hoard spectrum like squirrels preparing for a 50-year winter. Right? They will buy all of the spectrum. They will pay whatever they have to pay to lock competition out. It's called foreclosure value. It's worth more to them to keep new competition out than it is to pay for the spectrum. Example, Rogers, our good friends at Rogers, bought $1 billion, $1 billion, that's with a B, of AWS spectrum in the last auction, and have not deployed a single megahertz of that spectrum, not 1 megahertz. Now, these are problems I wish I had. Right, at Mobilicity. I wish I could make $1 billion investment and not use it, right? This would be an awesome, awesome problem. TELUS bought $890 million of AWS spectrum, has not deployed a single megahertz of spectrum. Bell Canada bought, I think it was north of $700 million worth of spectrum and have not deployed a single megahertz of that spectrum. So, on election night, I will say to you, as Canadian citizens, spectrum is a non-renewable resource, my friends. Spectrum is not like a tree. They're not growing any more of them, right? Spectrum, once it's gone, is gone. There are companies that in this country that are hoarding spectrum so that nobody else can use it, so that competition can't come in, and you as a Canadian taxpayer should be furious that your natural resources are being hoarded and wasted like this, right? So get angry, revolt. Thank you very much. No? Too much? Okay. Second position, there ought to be a spectrum cap imposed in the auction. The reason for a spectrum cap is because of the hoarding. Think about this for a second. I'll give you two stats and then I'll move on. Rogers, little 9 million subscribers, right? More spectrum than AT&T in the United States. 80 million subscribers. Rogers, 9 million. AT&T, 80 million, right? I don't get it. Something's going on here, right? I don't understand. Bellus, and by the way, we should call them Bellus because they're essentially together and they're going to be one company sooner or later anyways. So they should always be considered together. They have more spectrum. They have more spectrum than AT&T, T-Mobile, and all the regionals in the US combined. They have more spectrum, right? It's a huge, huge spectrum holding that these guys have. If you've got more than 90 megahertz of spectrum, you shouldn't be allowed to bid in the auction, period. That's it. No questions. Third position is if you've got 850 megahertz spectrum, you shouldn't be allowed to bid in the auction at all, if you've got it. And let me tell you why. The incumbents will tell you that they need 700 megahertz spectrum because, and I think I'm quoting, it's the beachfront property of wireless spectrum. It's great, it's low frequency, therefore it travels just farther, and it allows you to build out rural coverage areas. Great, 850 does too. And they all got 850 for free. They didn't pay anything for it. They got it for free. Deploy LTE in 850. Leave 700 for somebody else. It's just not fair. Now, by the way, little story for you. All the press releases you're seeing about deploying LTE and all that sort of stuff, I really like those press releases. They're great. The day that TELUS released their press release is a true story. The day TELUS released their press release saying they needed 700 megahertz to deploy LTE, no kidding, we actually got that press release. We took that press release, and everywhere it said TELUS, we penciled in Mobilicity, and everywhere it said Darren Entwistle, we penciled in Dave Dobbin. And we were actually going to flip it around and release it on the wire because we thought it was so good, right? But we were in the middle of a fundraising process, so we didn't do that. But the point was that anybody could have made those statements about building out rural networks. It's a silly thing to say. So it's also done on the last day of the policy submission. So there you go. Don't believe everything people say about deploying networks. So those are our positions on the 700 megahertz auction. Second question I get asked a lot is what about foreign ownership restrictions, right? You're a small company. What about relaxing foreign ownership restrictions? What's your position on that? So let me first say that the situation Global Live is in, I have no opinion on. And I don't know what's going to happen, and I have no idea. In the election, I don't know what's going to happen. So my position on foreign ownership is very simple, is that you need to ask yourself, what is the government's goal in relaxing foreign ownership restrictions? What's the point of the exercise? So if the point is increasing competition in the wireless market and getting Canadian consumers more choice, then what you need to do is relax foreign ownership restrictions for companies that have less than 10% market share in the market. The reason is that, having just gone through it, this is all about access to capital. Right? That's what relaxing foreign ownership requirements is about. It's about getting access to capital. We raise debt in the markets. It would have been great to have had the opportunity, rather than just to raise debt, to raise equity, but we couldn't raise foreign equity because we had to have Canadian control. So that's the issue. If we could have gone out and raised foreign equity, it would have been a different story for us during the raise. It would have been a different process. So that would have got money, and et cetera, you'd have more competition. So make no mistake, it's about access to capital. Now, Bell, Telus, Rogers, if they need access to capital, what they do is they release a bond. It sells in like 30 minutes, right? Or 30 seconds. Everybody buys the bond, bam, bam, bam. They've got more capital. Thank you very much. So access to capital is not an issue for the big guys. It truly is an issue for the little guys. So that's the question if you want to relax or if you want more competition. If your goal is to see prices lowered through multinational, international competition, then you should completely relax foreign ownership restrictions, right? If that's your goal. Because if you completely remove foreign ownership restrictions, you'll have Carlos Slim buying something real fast, right? America Mobile will buy Telus, thank you very much, it's gone. Comcast will buy Rogers telecommunications assets, like that, Bell's gone. The big Canadian companies are gone, and they're evaporated. And I don't think that's anything that any Canadian citizen wants, to see our champion companies evaporate like that. I don't think we want to see that. So that's my position on relaxing foreign ownership rules. Third question I get asked is, what about this advocacy position on the Quebec bill about contracts? Everybody know about that Quebec bill on contracts? So province of Quebec recently passed a law that makes it really difficult for cell phone providers to play games with contracts on customers. They put a lot of rules around what you can and cannot do with a contract. So how many people in the room pay their own cell phone bill? Put up your hands. How many of you have ever tried to get out of a contract? How was that experience? Good or bad? By show of hands, how many say it was bad? Everybody put up their hands, right? This is not a great experience, right? Let me give you a personal anecdote of what goes on in the Canadian industry. So my wife, we're from Winnipeg, and went to high school together, my wife and I, and my wife calls her mom, or used to call her mom all the time. And so she would call her mom, and we'd get charged 45 cents a minute long distance when she was calling on her mobile phone. And she got a call one day from the provider she was with, and the provider called and said, this is 2-3 years ago. Provider called and said, hey, we notice you're doing a lot of long distance calling. We've got this long distance saver option where we can give you deep discount long distance on your wireless phone for $5 a month. It reduces your rate. And my wife said, that's awesome. That sounds fantastic. That's going to save us a pile of money. What they didn't tell her is they added that plan that instantly renewed the 3-year contract into a new 3-year term. So we thought we were off a contract. So then her husband goes and gets a job running a mobile company, and we built this network, and I guess I better use my own product. So I phone the old provider and say, hey, I'm out of here. And they say, well, you kind of owe us $240. And I said, why? I've had your phone since 1998. And then there was the whole long contract cancellation story. This happens to Canadians every day. Every day. Every single day. And the government of Quebec, quite admirably, has stood up and said that the citizens of Quebec should not have to take this treatment from any company. These are dishonest business practices. Great. So we stood up for that position. We stood up for it. We said, yes, this makes absolute sense to us because consumer protection and protection of the consumer is paramount at Mobilicity. So we actually supported David Orzetti, who's got a private members bill in the Ontario legislature. We've met with him. We've told him we'll do whatever we have to do to support that bill in the province of Ontario. We've written the province of Manitoba. They're trying to pass a law. We said, hey, if you need it, we don't even operate there. We're saying, we're there for you if you want. Right? We've written Service Alberta, and Alberta told them we'll support them. We've written British Columbia. And even more importantly, and I say this publicly every chance I get, and I know CWTA is a sponsor. We are a member of CWTA. We firmly disagree with the CWTA's position on this issue. They are patently wrong. Wrong. They do not represent the views of the industry on this issue. They represent the views of the big three. So that's all I have to say on that issue. Consumers should be protected. So there's my three biggest questions, right? Now, I get asked other questions. I'm happy to answer questions for you anytime you like, but the other big questions I get asked about the company are, are you opening any new markets soon? You got this big chunk of financing. Are you going to open any new markets? The answer to that one is, at this point, we are working on the markets that we're in. We're going to concentrate on making our service the best service that it possibly can be. Is anybody in the room a Mobilicity customer? Is anybody in the room a Mobilicity customer? Hey, all right. Oh, two, right? How's the service? It's good. You know what? We're doing a number of things because the service is really, really good. And we're really proud of it. So in Calgary, when we launched, we've got this new thing. And it's really cool. You can see it on the internet. You should take a look at it. It's called the Mobilicity Network Challenge. And it's coming to Toronto soon. Here's what we do. We take a Mobilicity BlackBerry 9780. We built this kiosk deal. Mobilicity BlackBerry 9780, and then there's a second spot on the kiosk for another BlackBerry 9780. And we've got phones from Bell, TELUS, Rogers, Virgin, Koodo, and Wind. And we randomly put those phones as the second position on the kiosk, right? So you never know which phone you're going to get, and they're always mixing up. You never know which phone's in which position. This is like the Pepsi Challenge for mobile service, right? Now, we've been running it in Calgary for almost, it'll be a week on Thursday. So the first results, do you want to know the first results? Because it's fantastic. Up to last night, 38% of the consumers that took the Mobilicity Network Challenge could not tell the difference between our phone and the incumbent phone. They couldn't tell the difference. Of those that could tell the difference, and by the way, this is completely impartial stuff, 90% preferred the Mobilicity phone, right? 90% preferred our phone over the incumbent's phone. So it's a great testament to our network. So that's coming to the city soon. It'll be in Toronto, it'll be in Vancouver. We're going to roll that out nationally. It's really a cool thing. The second thing we've launched, and we think this is great, is we've got a new policy at the shop. It's a 7-day money-back refund on the service. So you can buy our service, you can try it, you can take it home, use it at work. If it doesn't work or if it goes down any way you don't like it, you can actually take your Mobilicity phone back and get a full refund. We think that's a powerful statement as well in the marketplace. We're that confident in our network. So that's on the network quality issue. That's the only way I think you can actually prove this stuff is you need to do a side-by-side test. I think that's it. Now, we do have one big advantage over the Pepsi Challenge, though, when you think about it, is when they did the Pepsi Challenge way back when, like Pepsi and Coke, they cost the same, right? So you drink your Pepsi, you drink your Coke, you pick the one you like, it's the same price, you're just picking which one you like better. With us, you actually save a bunch of money, right? So we think we're the Pepsi Challenge better, right? Which is great. So lots of interesting things going on with that. So I guess to sum up, I've talked for a long time. To sum up, the election, I don't know what's going to happen. I do know that the governments that have come and gone, and maybe will stay, have done great things for the Canadian consumer. I do know that the wireless industry is changing and competition has brought about great things for the Canadian consumer, and it's going to continue to bring about great things for the Canadian consumer. The great thing about competition is that it forces all of us in the room, we're all in the industry, it forces all of us to be faster. It forces all of us to think harder. It forces all of us to figure out new and better ways to provide value to consumers, right? And the last thing is it forces all of us to work harder to fulfill that need for the consumer for mobile services, because it's an indelible need in the Canadian population. So with that, thanks for having me. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I'm sure there are questions in the audience. If there aren't, we'll drink beer. I'm really boring. That dude's sleeping.
Okay.
Yes, my friend from Frost and Sullivan.
Oh, thank you. Good memory there, Dave. I'll ask a couple, and then I'll give the floor to somebody else. The first one, I think I was asking you earlier. why couldn't the new entrants kind of try to team up on some sort of joint build-out? Because I know it's very capex intensive, and you guys are obviously focused, and I think you're doing great work for us consumers to make this a more competitive marketplace. Why couldn't you team up to try to do some rent sharing? You say it doesn't work, and yet we've seen evidence that at least in some geographies it works. And hey, even with Belos, they did the HSPA overlay. I know you're saying this is the precursor to their eventual union, but so that's my first question.
Biggest question is who fires who, Darren or George?
And then the second one is just in general. Your positioning for 4G, because we also know Rogers now is announcing this. I mean, I know they're trying to get their feet wet with trying to use some of that AWS spectrum, which they haven't so far. How does a new entrant position itself vis-a-vis that? Because we all know about LTE, and it's kind of hard for you guys to get the same economies of scale. So how do you respond to that? Thanks.
Okay, so 2 questions. What was the first question again? RAN sharing. So we are actually working with some of our new entrant friends on towers and things like that. In fact, in Western Canada, we have a number of locations where we actually share tower builds with the other new entrants that are out there. Building towers in the West now is very, very difficult. The consultation process is very, very in depth. And you really have to share to get ahead at all. So we actually do share tower space with other new entrants. When you get up to rooftops, you go to any rooftop, they're already full. I mean, I can show you rooftops in Toronto where everybody's on the roof, where every carrier is on the roof. So we do share that with our other competitors. As far as RAN sharing goes, it's a great idea, but I mean, we're willing to talk about it. We think it's a great idea. It's just the mechanics of getting it done and negotiating that out, and how do you create value for your shareholders if you're sharing the RAN? It's a big, complicated question. That being said, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, we are open to any opportunities of sharing build costs with anybody in the industry. Right? If Rogers wants to co-build towers with us, we're absolutely interested in co-building towers with Rogers. If TELUS wants to co-build with us, we're absolutely willing to co-build with us with TELUS. We'll co-build with anybody on the market, because I agree with you, capital is hard to come by, and the more efficient you can be with it, the better. So does that answer your first question? So that's it. The second question is, what's my position on 4G? When I figure out what 4G is, I'll have a position on it, because I've been down in the US using some of the 4G networks, and I'm really questioning what 4G actually is. I've used Metro PCS 4G, I've used T-Mobile 4G, I've used other networks 4G. So it depends on what you define as 4G and what is 4G. So what can we do today? Our network today is capable, with software upgrade, of doing exactly the same thing T-Mobile or AT&T are doing with their network. We could roll 4G tomorrow as defined by T-Mobile and AT&T. We could do it absolutely 100%. Now, we're not going to, because we're going to use what we have and market the service that we have. It's very, very good, and our customers love it, and we'll upgrade it when we have to. And that was part of actually the fundraising that we did, was getting ready to make that move when we need to make the move. As far as LTE, that is a different issue, in that we have 10 megahertz of spectrum, and deploying LTE in 10 megahertz of spectrum is well, number one, it's a challenge, because both channels are filled with HSPA channels. And second off, LTE in 10 megahertz is, why bother, right? It's not a point. That being said, the AT&T purchase of T-Mobile, we think, speaks very well to the value of our spectrum. AT&T's banding plans, as far as AWS at the top and 700 in the bottom, we think adds value to our asset over the long term. So we think that positions us well going into the future. But what is 4G, right? I don't know, right? I don't know. I tell you, I've used T-Mobile all over the US and I haven't experienced it yet. Right, so there you go. Next question. We're out of here fast. Oh.
In terms of contract length, do you feel like that's a competitive issue in Canada, and are you in favor of the government intervening in that regard?
Yes.
Thank you.
We don't have contracts. We don't do them. There's no contract with our service. So consumer can walk into our store and get everything that we offer with no contract, no credit check. I mean, you don't even really need to give us your name. I didn't say that, but you really don't, right? The marketing people are looking at me like, don't say that, we want their name, but you really don't, right? So, contracts, I think, are important. We did a lot of research before we launched the business, and we did a lot of research into consumer irritants and what makes customers mad. And we actually designed Mobilicity around those consumer irritants. So the number one consumer irritant, you're quite right, was contracts. Customers don't like them because the minute they try to get out of them, it's punitive. I make the joke that a contract is like a bad marriage, right? It's hard to get out of, and when you do, it costs a ton of money, right? So they're not good. The second consumer irritant that's really bugs Canadian consumers is something we call bill surprise. And what consumers hate is cranking open a bill and not knowing what they're going to get in the bill. All the people in the audience have said they pay their own mobile bill. Anybody ever open the bill and go, whoa, what's going on, right? I see lots of nods in the crowd. Do you like it or hate it? You hate it. So we built Mobilicity. It is actually, and I'm very proud of this, we are the only Canadian carrier where it is physically impossible, it is actually physically impossible to get a surprise on your bill. It cannot happen. There's no way. I will guarantee you 100%, I'll bet you my car, you cannot get a surprise on your bill, right? I will bet you my automobile. Why? Because we don't print bills. We don't have them, right? It's a flat rate, unlimited service. There's no bill. You don't even get one. So you can't get a surprise because it's flat rate. So it's very straightforward. Yes, sir.
Before you bet your car, what are you driving?
You know what? I drive I made a statement when I bought my last car, because remember I said Mobilicity is the low-cost operator, right? I drive a Volkswagen Jetta in diesel.
Very good choice. I have one without a trunk called a Rabbit.
By the way, it's greener than a Toyota hybrid. Right? It's better on emissions than a Toyota hybrid. The VW clean diesel, awesome car, right? There you go.
But I have a question. You're competing against companies that offer both mobile service and content.
Yes.
Can you make some remarks as to the market competitive from that point of view?
Sure. We don't actually see that as a real impediment, primarily because the content train has kind of left the station, right? In that, when you look at where content is going to be delivered in the future and how people are going to use content in the future, it's not about cable TV, it's not about regionalization, it's not about regional content, it's about the internet. You can't control that. So let me tell you one big difference between us and all of our competitors. We like Skype, okay? You can buy a Mobilicity phone today, any Mobilicity phone on any rate plan, and you can load up Skype and use it. And we think you should. We think it's awesome, right? Use Skype, no problem. You want to use Google Voice on our service? Fire that bad boy up. It's not a problem. We have no illusions. We don't care if we own your phone number, right? We do not care if we own your phone number. Doesn't matter to us. We don't provide an email service, right? We don't have an email service. There's no mobilicity.com and get your own email list. We don't do it. Why would we try to compete with Gmail? Why would you try to compete with that? Why would you try to compete with Hotmail? This doesn't make any sense, right? It doesn't make, Google, these guys have it made. Free is a 4-letter F word everybody loves. Everybody loves it, right? How many of you have used an Android phone, right? Absolutely, they're awesome. They're full integration with the Google suite of products, Google Docs, Google Maps, Google Voice. It's an unbelievable experience, and it's all delivered to the consumer for free. Right? Why would I try to own that content? Right? You can't compete with that content. We're Canadians. We're tiny in the global scheme of things, right? I mean, hey, if you want to watch YouTube, it works great on the Mobilicity network. Come on down. $40 a month, unlimited talk, text, data, and BlackBerry. Next question. Hi.
I got a bit of a different question for you. You talked about the challenge of differentiation in the market with everybody sort of being maybe a bit vanilla. Mm-hmm. Consumer trust, I think you said sort of like a used car salesman, that type of thing. And I'm finding a lot of companies to build their brand, customer engagement, employee engagement, and providing value, which are all hot buttons, are using corporate social responsibility as a tool. TELUS is big into cancer. Rogers has been years giving...
Hang on, can I correct you? TELUS is big into curing cancer.
Yeah. And Bell with their big plan, with what they did with mental health, and Microsoft, Google, all these big RIM, they're all getting into this aggressively from a strategic thing, just not doing promotions, but from a strategic alignment. I'm just interested in your thought from Mobilicity, if it's a strategic pillar, where you see it in your opinion, that type of thing.
Actually, John Bitove, our chairman, he founded a charity called the School Life Fund. And what the School Life Fund is all about is providing extracurricular activities to kids in underprivileged neighborhoods and underprivileged schools. And we are big participants in the School Life Fund. We do a lot of fundraising around school life. It's actually really, really great. A lot of our customers, when we started the business, we started off marketing our services primarily in low-income neighborhoods. That's where we started. And I mean, that's evolved over time. We're now selling data services. We're putting a store in Square One. But in the beginning, it was very much about low-income ethnic neighborhoods. And that's where the School Life Fund does a lot of work. So we do actively participate, and it's very, very important to our business. 2 years running now, I've actually gone and actually presented the checks at the schools and given the checks at the schools. And I'm telling you, what an experience. I was at the special needs school in Western Toronto, giving them a check 2 years ago, and they're going to use the funds. This principal sat down and told me the story about what they were going to use the funds for. And the story was this, is that a lot of parents of kids that go to the school can't afford to send their kids on field trips. Because these are kids with some issues, and so it's expensive. And so the money that we were giving them was going to be used to actually send the kids out to the zoo and on field trips and all that sort of stuff. And when you hear that, I actually yelled at John because I said, "You send me there." I cried like a baby right after that. Being part of that. So that's what we believe in, is helping people in the communities that we serve. Right? We're big advocates of that. It's a great question. It's an awesome question. Next question. Hi.
Question regarding your marketing strategy.
Yes.
So do you have any plans to revamp your storefronts? In the sense, like if you notice, if you walk into any Mobilicity store, it's very print-based. Do you have any plans to move, to add any additional like digital, like kiosks you mentioned in Calgary, but any additional digital like advertising in store, or like a Microsoft Surface or something?
No, not at this point. No.
Okay.
We thought about that, and again, we are the low-cost operator, so putting in technology like that into the store doesn't really jive with our vision of being that low-cost operator. I actually think our stores look pretty awesome. They're colorful, they're bright, they're clean, they look really good, but no plans for interactive media in the store. Now, hey, that might change. I'm not the marketing genius, so it may change, but at this point, I don't see it. Right? What we look for in the store is we look to create an environment that makes it easy for the customers to do what they need to do in the stores. So one thing that we do in our stores, and I don't know if you've ever been in one of our stores, but one thing we do that's a little bit different is every single store that we have, you can actually make a bill payment in the store. You can go in and you can pay your bill. And that's different. And a lot of our customers actually do come in and they pay their bills. We get a surprising amount of customers coming in paying their bills in cash. So we need to make the store flow well for that function that a customer does. We need to make the buying experience. So you'll see we have a really great phone wall where people can make decisions on the phones that they look at. And then we have very, very large displays of our rate card. Our rate card's very, very simple. We try to keep it simple because everything we do, we try to make it as simple as humanly possible. So we just have 3 rate plans, and those 3 rate plans are prominently displayed in the store. So if you go into one of our stores, we took a lot of conscious design went in with our partners that designed the stores. David Milne designed them for us, and they put a lot of thought into how does the customer flow through the store as they're coming to and again to the store. Right? So that's why the stores are laid out as they are. A couple of things we've learned about the stores is we've learned that they don't need to be as big as they originally were. When we originally opened the stores, a lot of our stores, we opened them in incumbent size stores, so they're very large stores. And so now if you go out west, actually, the stores are in a little bit different footprint. They're smaller, they're tighter, it makes them look fuller and more substantial, right? So a little bit different design, but no Microsoft Surface. I'm sorry to anybody that works at Microsoft. I apologize. Right. Next question.
Do you foresee consolidation among the new entrants, or are you interested in a merger?
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think there is more than enough room in the Canadian marketplace for all of the players in the market to survive, if not thrive, in the marketplace. If you look at a lot of markets around the world, there's lots of players. If you look around the US, there's markets where there's as many players as there are in certain Canadian cities. I think consolidation I think there will be consolidation. The question is it consolidation in the incumbents or is it consolidation in the new entrants? That's the more important question, right? How soon till Bell and Telesworth, or how soon till Shaw and Rogers? I don't know, right? I don't know. That's a bigger question, right? That's it? Then I guess we're done. Okay, well, oh wait, okay, you got one. I'll do this all night.
All right. I was just thinking about handsets and the fact that
we've got the best handset lineup of any of the new entrants, you got to admit.
Yeah, about that lineup.
It's awesome.
No, I mean, I think you probably have more research than I would have in my head, but I'm sure a lot of people do make their purchase decision based on a specific handset. I don't know what the full lineup is, but there are a few sort of obvious ones that people like to buy that doesn't exist at Mobilicity now. I'm just wondering if you could comment on the challenge of not having perhaps one or two of the key handsets, and what is it that prevents you from having a more extensive selection? Like even, I know among the providers there's still differentiation.
Are you asking why we don't have the iPhone?
Well, that plus there's a couple others though, and even my last phone was an Android phone, and then I went to all the players to see the same phone, but it actually it comes in chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry.
Yeah, I agree.
Even though it's a Samsung Galaxy S, this guy's got the Captivate, and this guy's got the Activate and the Vibrate, and and they have these little variations.
Yeah.
But I think handsets are key, and I'm just wondering, the iPhone is the obvious question.
Yes.
But there are others. Is it because you're on the low end that's not relevant? Is it really, you have to do things for Apple that you're not willing to do? What prevents you from being there?
What does that even mean? I don't know what that question means, and it disturbs me a little. But no, Apple doesn't make the iPhone in the AWS band. They don't produce it. I mean, who knows? With the purchase of T-Mobile, they might. There's lots of rumors around it. We think the iPhone's a great phone. That being said, Android is a fantastic product, and we do pretty well with that. Handsets, when we started the business, that was one area we spent a lot of time really, really working hard to make sure that we didn't get trapped into any boxes. And we spend a lot of time today on our handset lineup. So if you look at our handset lineup in comparison to the other new entrants, I can't see you in the lights, that's why I'm standing over here. If you look at us in comparison with the other new entrants, our handset lineup has now refreshed 2.5 times since we launched Toronto. So every handset that we had at launch is gone, completely replaced, and we're into the second round 0.5 of new handsets on the shelf. And we think that's really important, is refreshing those handsets and showing the consumer different handsets, because it gives the consumer the impression that you're moving, that you're changing, that you're being with the times, all those sorts of great things. So we're doing that on purpose. So to give you an example, this week we launched 2 new handsets. I'll give you the 2 weeks. We launched the Nexus S We launched the Samsung G Touch. We launched the Nokia E73. By the way, if you're looking for a great business handset at a phenomenal price, we've got the Nokia E73 at $149. It's an awesome deal. Our competitor sells it for $300. But E73 at $149, and then we've launched the Playbook. But we also have BlackBerry. And those do really, really well. We have low-end Android devices. We have high-end Android devices. We have the Sony Xperia X10, for example, and we have the Motorola Spice at the lower end. So the consumer gets a really wide selection of handsets that they can choose from. When it comes to operating systems, we really like Android. And we like it for the reasons that I spoke of earlier, is that it's open, it takes full advantage of that Google ecosystem. So I use an Android phone. I'm an Android guy. There's some people in our shop, they're BlackBerry people. I'm an Android guy. I just love the operating system, and our consumers love the operating system. And every release of Android that comes out is just getting better and better. So I understand the question on variants. That's a thing we learned when we came into the business, is we learned about the different variants of handsets that come out. We learned about the concept of buying an exclusive to lock your competitor out so they don't get it. And that's why there's all the variants, is the handset vendors are trying to keep everybody happy. That's why they're all out there. They're really close, and they essentially do all the same things. They're just different colors and different backgrounds. They're the same phones, right? Does that answer your question? It's not. Yeah. It's not. To expand on the handset thing, when we launched, we thought when we launched the business that we were going to be selling basic handsets, talk and text handsets in low-income ethnic neighborhoods. And as we got into the market and all the stuff happened, right? Chatter launch, Solo launch, we started to change our business and morph what we were doing. And now we're finding that well over 50% of our customers are walking into our stores and buying our data plan, our data offering. We're selling, like, the number one selling phone in the chain right now is actually the Motorola Spice. It's an Android smartphone. It's the number one selling phone out there. We're selling more smartphones than we thought we would originally. So the business model is changing. Even the high-end smartphones, we're selling many, many more of them than we originally thought that we would. People say, we brought in the Google Nexus One. We were the only carrier in English Canada to have the Google Nexus One. And this was a huge decision for us. It was a massive decision because, you put us back to when we were buying that phone. We sat around the table and we said, who's going to walk into our store? Okay, really, guys, who's walking into our store and paying $550, no contract, cash on the barrelhead for a smartphone from us? And we don't have contracts, so there's no subsidizing. There's no $0 phones at Mobilicity. It doesn't exist. So imagine the discussion around the table, like, oh my goodness, this is going to happen. Oh, geez, we're going to get stuck with a pile of inventory. It's going to be horrible. We're going to have to get rid of it. Oh, what do we do? So we ordered a small quantity. The smallest quantity we could buy. We ordered them to start. And they sold out, no kidding, in 30 minutes, right? They sold out, it was like, bam, they did 30 minutes. So we went to the handset guys and we said, well, geez, 30 minutes, that's pretty good. You better reorder. So they reordered. We waited a couple weeks for the phones to come in. The second order lasted 40 minutes, right? We upped the order again. The third order, okay, it took a little bit longer to sell, and that 4 hours was the tensest 4 hours of my career. Right? But what we've learned is that smartphones are important to people. The internet is becoming more and more embedded in the customer experience and more embedded in what the customer is doing with the phones. And once the customer sees our service or talks to somebody that has the service or uses the service in a store, they very quickly become converted. And they see that for $10, we had unlimited data at any plan for $10. They try it, they see it, they say, wow, this is great value, and they buy it. And that's why we're selling as many smartphones as we do, right? Because the value proposition is just so strong, right? It's so strong. Let me give you an example. For those of you who pay your own bill in the room, how many of you have BlackBerry? Okay, unlimited local calling, unlimited North American calling, unlimited text, voicemail, call forwarding, caller waiting, three-way calling, caller ID, unlimited data, and unlimited BlackBerry. Okay, full load. Okay, full boat. The maximum your bill will ever be is $60. Flat. That's it. That's all you pay. $60. Right? Once a customer gets that, they buy. Now, if you don't need the long distance, you can actually buy. Think about this. From us, you can get an Android phone. You could walk in, buy the Google Nexus S. You get everything that phone does. You can unlock every feature of that phone. The full Google experience. Watch YouTube. Do whatever you want. You buy our unlimited $25 plan. You add the $10 data add-on for $35 a month. You are into the Google Nexus S unlimited. Google Voice your brains out. Watch YouTube 24 hours a day. There's no extra charges. That is a compelling value proposition. Here's a question. How can you offer data like that?
What exactly?
I know, it's crazy.
What is your average data consumption? Are you able to share that?
You know what? Actually, I can share all sorts of consumption figures. The average Canadian user on an incumbent uses between 300 to 400 minutes of voice service. Our average user uses between 12 and 1400 minutes of voice. Our average user. Interesting statistic for you. We do 2.5 times as much international long distance as we do Canadian long distance, which is an interesting factoid. The average user that we have with data uses slightly less than a gig, right, on average, right, on average. You should try the service. Who are you with?
I'm outside of your footprint.
Well, hang on, let's have a conversation. Where do you live?
We'll do that offline, really. I would.
No, seriously, I want your business. you know you're paying too much, right? Yeah. Actually, I haven't met a Canadian consumer that lives in our service territory we can't save money. I actually haven't met somebody we can't save piles of money. I haven't met one, right? So, you know, I literally have not met a customer we can't add value to. You know, I'll give you an example. Our new chief customer officer, he came on, he bought Blackberries for his wife and 3 children, right? And the money he saves with our service, okay, in 1 year, the money he saves with our service as opposed to what he was paying, he could take his family to Disney on a vacation with the money he saves on the service. This is some significant Hiroshi, my friend, right? It's a lot. Okay, your question. You're standing there. You want?
You know, I was listening. I didn't want to disengage.
It's okay.
From your,
you can sit down. I like your sweater.
You talked about 700 megahertz, and that's very topical.
It is really a very topical thing.
I think it was the TELUS press release, because Rogers and TELUS launched around the same time.
Wouldn't that have been great if we'd caught Mobilicity, Dave Dobbin? Wouldn't that have been great if we'd released that?
I think TELUS had rationalized their 700 megahertz associated with rural coverage, being able to use their AWS and in urban and 700 megahertz for better propagation.
Sure.
You know, now your interest in 700 megahertz, since you are an urban carrier, is because it's got presumably better, well, it does have better in-building penetration. So isn't that wasting the spectrum? Isn't there an opportunity here where the spectrum is being used in your footprint? But
I don't want to speculate on what we do with the spectrum until the auction rules are out and we decide what we're going to do. I think that's fair. Next question.
The guy who was before me sort of asked similar, but a little bit more informed question because I am a mobile blogger.
You're what?
I'm a mobile blogger.
Okay, great.
So I'm a little more in touch with it.
I thought you said you're mobile water, and I said
I like mobile water too. I have a bottle of water.
Don't know what that means.
It's good.
Which blog?
TheCellularGuru.com.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
we spoke at the Howard
I know.
Farms
I'm just
thing.
joking. I know you are.
About the prototype, the N94 prototype of the iPhone that was revealed on BGR.
Rumor.
There was pictures.
Right.
And it wasn't photoshopped, so.
I
can't
cannot
comment?
speculate. Cannot speculate. Right? I can't.
Okay, no, but I have to ask. And one other thing.
Do you know what I want to know from you is why is the white iPhone 2 millimeters thicker than the black iPhone?
It's not. There was a test today. Someone actually looked into that. But seriously, it does. bother you in terms of the idea that maybe Apple will come out with an AWS iPhone, that your buying power is supplemented by the fact that T-Mobile exists as an AWS provider, correct?
Well, so I mean, the way that handsets work is like Canada, when it comes, like the global ecosystem for handsets, Canada is a very, very small player in the global ecosystem for handsets. So, you know, the way it works is, you know, if you look at the handset lineups from each carrier, like, you know, one carrier will draft behind another US carrier, and another Canadian carrier will draft behind another US carrier, and buy models that those US carriers buy and import them into Canada. So it's all common stuff. So you're absolutely right. So we draft that T-Mobile sort of ecosystem.
So does T-Mobile getting bought by AT&T, if that actually does go through, does that...
It's awesome.
Why is that awesome?
Because we just went from a carrier to draft with 22 million customers to a carrier with 94 million customers. That's great. Volume just went way up. Prices went down. That's awesome.
So you're sure
Band
that
4 Qualcomm chips everywhere.
So, but that means you're sure that AT&T is going to keep the T-Mobile AWS alive and use it for their customers?
I don't know AT&T's plans, but I would assume.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Who knows? Who knows? I cannot speak for the US Department of Justice. I don't know. I wish I could. I would, and I'd buy stocks. But you know, there you go. Next question. Yes, sir.
I'll just ask on Android questions, as you mentioned you were a fan.
Love it.
In terms of, are you a fan of the vanilla sort of Android experience? Is that what you use?
I was. I'm not anymore.
What converted you?
We'll be launching a phone in a couple of weeks. And I've been using the prototype for about a month, and it's awesome. And so I'm really excited about it. I can't tell you about it. It's coming in a couple weeks. User interface on it is great. I love gingerbread. I love the straight up gingerbread. It's really, really nice. There's a layer on top of gingerbread coming out that's really, really makes it usable. My biggest frustration with straight gingerbread is, this is really geeky. My biggest frustration with straight gingerbread is the email client is not really usable in that you can't search it properly, and I don't like the dialer, right? I don't like the dialer very much, and the social networking integration isn't really great. So that's my big beef with vanilla Android. If you could fix those problems in a user interface and you could present that to the Canadian public, you'd sell a lot of phones, wouldn't you?
Well, that may make my question moot, but the question's, do you think the fragmentation in the user interface for Android is going to hamper the adoption of Android and make it less viable competitor against iPhone?
No, I don't think so at all. I think it'll enhance it, right? I think it'll enhance it, right? It's beta VHS, man. Beta VHS, right?
Hi there.
Hi.
Just wondering, what are one or two reasons you think more people aren't switching over to Mobilicity? A couple key reasons.
Top 3 reasons people aren't switching to Mobilicity. I think, you know, one of our biggest challenges in the business is the conveyance of our value proposition to the consumer in a way that's easily understandable very quickly, right? So when you're driving down the Gardiner and you're looking at a billboard, it's really difficult on that billboard to convey our value proposition so fast that a consumer actually gets it, right? It's tough. It's tough to do. You know, when I talk to people, right, and admit it, there are those of you in the audience who you've heard the pitch and you're actually thinking about going to a Mobilicity store and buying a phone because you're paying way too much with the incumbent, you hate it, and you're gonna go try one of our phones. That's the way it goes every single time. If I've got 5 minutes to talk to you, then we get you, but the marketing of that message, getting that message out to the consumer is very, very difficult. So that's why we're looking at new and different ways to advertise and to market our service. It's a big challenge. Second thing, I think, is that Canadian consumers are very conservative. And the Canadian consumer, I mean, you know, how do I phrase this without being too controversial? They done been lied to. They done been cheated, right? I mean, they've had a bad relationship. They've gone to one incumbent. It's been a bad, abusive relationship. They've switched to another incumbent. It's been a bad, abusive relationship. It's not good. So they see another wireless provider coming and they say, it's just going to be more of the same. They don't trust, right? Those of you who pay your own bill. Did you know the Canadian Council of Consumers published a survey earlier this year, and it's staggering. This is not my numbers, it's their numbers. 40% of Canadian wireless consumers don't open their bills every month. 40% of Canadian consumers don't open their bills. Think about the psychology of that. I am so frustrated. I have been punched so hard in the face so many times that I'm not even going to look anymore, right? That's desperation. Now, of the 60% that do open their bills, this is the Canadian Council of Consumers. Of the 60% of Canadians that do open their bills, 45% of them find at least 3 errors on their bill. At least 3 errors when they open their bill. So they pluck up the courage to actually crank that bad boy open, and it's wrong almost half the time. So that's a bad relationship. And this, I mean, you hear it from consumers all the time. Oh, it's just more of the same. It's just more of the same. What are you going to do that's different? That's why we crafted the complete value proposition of Mobilicity, exactly the opposite of what the incumbents have, right? There's no contract. There's no bill. There's no bill surprise. It has to be the exact opposite of what the big guys do to actually cut through the noise and to make sense to the consumer. And then the last big challenge is that we have to do math with the consumer. We have to do mathematics, right? Because the Canadian consumer, for years, has been given a phone for $0. So they equate no value with a handset, right? Now, this is unique to our industry, by the way, right? It's unique to our industry because the last time I checked, I live in Georgetown, and my cable company is Cogeco, Louis O'Day, the Day family, great family. But I bought cable service. They did not give me a television. They did not give me a 52-inch flat screen for free. I wish they had, but they didn't. I had to go out and buy my TV. In the mobile industry, we hand them $500 handsets for nothing, right? So what we do is we give the consumer a much better deal on the monthly rate plan, right? A much better deal, like radically better deal, but the consumer has to do the math on why they wouldn't buy a $0 phone, right? So as consumers get more educated and start to do the math more, that's good for us. If you look around the world, right, you know, for example, China Mobile, largest mobile carrier on the face of the earth, 500 million subscribers, 99% of the phones on the China Mobile network were not sold by China Mobile, right? They were not sold by China Mobile. China Mobile's not in the handset business, they're in the mobile service business. By the way, if we could not be in the handset business, we wouldn't be in it. We would be a mobile service provider. Right? That'd be great. That'd be awesome. That's what we do. Right? But you have to be in the handset business in this part of the world. So that's a big challenge for us. Now we're working on that because you do the math. I mean, take Anthony, for example. He's going to save $3,000 a year on his family's service. $3,000 a year. I met a guy in Calgary. We launched Calgary the other day, and we had an average Calgarian who came out to our store launch, and he had done the math. If you go, by the way, to our Facebook page, there's a new thing called the Mobilicity Savings Challenge. You can actually get a calculator on how much you'd save by going with our service. We had this average Calgarian, he's a social worker with the Alberta government. He input his own bill, he figured out his savings. You know what he was going to save over 10 years being with our service? Enough to put his son through university twice, right? That's a lot of money. So when you look at it that way, a $500 handset isn't a lot of money, but you got to look at it that way, right? Does that make sense? Great. Next question. Sorry, when I answer these questions, I give you more than you asked for.
Okay. So a contract is, to protect the investment that you do on your customer, that you don't, because you don't provide the handset, but as a mean to keep your churn very low, to minimize your churn. Mm-hmm. I wonder about your churn rate and how it compares with your competitors.
I think it compares very favorably, but clearly we are in a postpaid pay in advance model, so our churn is higher than a contract model, but it's not where prepaid is. And that's part of the great thing about our service is We have a moment of truth with our customer every month, right? The incumbents have a moment of truth with their customers once every 3 years, right? So, you have to face your carrier once every 3 years if you're with Bell, Telus, or Rogers. If you face them before that, you pay $400 to get out. Not a good deal. But with us, every month we have to make that customer happy. So we think it actually gets us to provide a higher level of service, right? Phone our call center right now, right? I mean, if you're the Mobilicity customer in the audience, I mean, talk to him after the event. Phone our call center. Average wait time till you get a live person on the phone this month is 44 seconds, right? Live person on the phone, ready to help you, 44 seconds. So let's do another Mobilicity challenge. Take any one of the incumbent's phones. We'll dial 611 on a Mobi phone, and we'll dial 611 on the incumbent phone. Whoever gets to customer service agent first, you give your business to. What do you think? You in? You take that bet? Right? It's all about service. Sorry, I get a little passionate. Right? Next question. Well, if that's it, I think I'd like to thank you for coming tonight. I hope I answered all your questions. It was great speaking with all of you. Thanks.
Great, Dave. Thanks very much. And I can say firsthand from the 4 or 5 people at my company that changed, not only did they save a lot of money, but the most frequent comment they make is the fact that the network is really good. So I'll back that up totally. Thanks very much for coming out today and telling us more about the company and the value prop. Just in closing, this is the last event for the first half of the year, and we'll resume in the fall timeframe, so stay tuned for that. June marks actually the 5-year anniversary of our chapter, so we've had quite a number of events, and thank you everyone for coming out today and supporting us previously at all the other events. So thanks very much. And a round of applause for Dave Dobbin.